Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello everybody, my name is Debbie from NDIS Property Australia, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today I have two guest speakers from the office with me, Maddie, and a new staff member, Rachel, who we'll be introducing in a moment. But we're going to be talking today about a new offering that we have to predominantly SDA investors. It is called SDA Housing Assist. Now, the reason that we have started to do this is because we're having increasingly more people contacting our office or contacting other providers that we work closely with that have got an SDA house that's either completed and empty or it's under construction, and the organisation they've purchased through has not really been particularly helpful in assisting them engage providers and find participants as tenants. So they're coming to us saying, can we help? And we wanting to, just help people in this disability world find appropriate housing. That's what the whole point of this is. We have decided to set up this service so we can help match participants to properties if it's at all possible. So I haven't been too involved in the inception of this. It's kind of Maddie's baby. So Maddie, I'm going to actually ask you a few questions about SDA Housing Assist and where we're currently at.
Of course, happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. So I guess how long have we been doing this for now?
I'd say probably about 2 months, but it's still quite fresh and we're still learning. But we are doing everything we can to provide the best of support to these investors and anyone who may need this type of support.
So what kind of investors have we had engage with us so far for this service?
So far, it's been predominantly people that have had struggles with engaging with SDA providers and finding SDA providers that are able to help find participants for their SDA home. Also, people who just don't exactly know where to turn to and don't know how to get participants into their home. So essentially what we've been doing is just advising people that we are here. We can do anything necessary to try our absolutely hardest to get participants into the home by contacting support coordinators, seeing if they've got any participants that are looking for an SDA home, health practitioners, seeing if they've got any clients that have mentioned the need for SDA at the moment, cold calling around all sorts of different providers, contacting SDA providers. A lot of research is involved in this as well. Say, for example, you've got a house in Townsville and you have no idea what providers are out there because you are not necessarily based in Townsville. We are here to do that sort of research and then get started on the cold calling of the providers that we were able to find. We also can provide weekly updates and reporting and anything else necessary to try and lock in some participants into an empty SDA home.
And I guess the important word to understand here is try. We're not going to be guaranteeing any success because the industry doesn't work that way. But we know that a lot of people are concerned that they're maybe running a bit late to start getting participants lined up for their home because it's nearly completed. Or they actually do have a home that is vacant, sitting there, it's enrolled, and it is, or at least it is, the construction is completed. They haven't managed to engage a provider, so it's not yet enrolled with the NDIS and they're bleeding money. And we obviously want to do our best to help. No one else is listening to them, so at least we're doing what we can. So how does this actually work, Maddie? We work on an hourly rate?
Yeah, so we only charge a very small hourly fee. And depending on if your property is empty, obviously we'd look at, sort of doing between 2 to 4 or 4 to 6 hours per week at a very small hourly fee. And then if your property is still under construction and say you're 3 to 6 months away from it being completed, we'd obviously look at just starting off with maybe 1 or 2 hours per week, just while we're in that sort of beginning phases of getting ready for the property to be completed. So all we ask, we don't charge any, massive fees. If we are able to connect you with a SDA provider, we don't charge massive fees. If we are able to find a participant for the home, obviously if we do connect you with an SDA provider, unfortunately they do charge quite significant amounts for engagement fees, and if they are able to find participants for the home, they charge a
participant procurement.
Yeah, participant procurement fee.
And just in case those of you have no idea about these fees, they can range anywhere from maybe $3,000 to $5,000 for the provider engagement fee. So that's what you'll have to pay the SDA provider, the manager, property manager, to set up the property. So they have to enroll the property, they have to do the density statement, and there's a whole lot of other stuff involved. And if they source the participants, the fee per participant can range anywhere up to $10,000 per participant. So, that is quite a high fee. We've mentioned that a number of times on this podcast when we've talked about costs that SDA investors need to be aware of. But we don't charge that. If we find you a participant, this is just included in our hourly rate.
Yeah, that's
correct?
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So essentially, if you were to reach out to us, what you could expect is we'd get all of the details from you, floor plans, any photos or videos you have of the home. Then I'd do up a service agreement that describes everything that we would be doing within these services, and the hourly fee, of course. And then as soon as the service agreement is signed, we get an invoice sent. As soon as you pay the first month of fees, then we hit the ground running and we do anything and everything that we can to try and provide this support for you as a homeowner.
So any other things to add to how this works, what we do?
Not off the top of my head, no. However, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or us on Maddie at ndis.property. I would be happy to answer any inquiries or questions that you may have during this podcast.
Now is probably a good time to introduce Rachel, our new team member who's been with us for a little while now. Rachel is our provider support. So she comes from a carer's background in the NDIS industry, and so she is now assisting us predominantly with contacting providers, different organisations with India specifically to find out whether they have SDA funded participants or are likely to have various things like that. So welcome, Rachel.
Oh, thank you, Deb. Thank you very kindly, and thank you, Maddie, for the story about what we're essentially doing. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to be on board. I think it's a great initiative for the company and the people looking to find SDA participants. There's some struggles at the moment, and I get that there's some hardships with the NDIS generally at the moment, and I think that this is a really important service that we're offering, and I'm very excited to be, I guess, the front face of providing this service.
Yeah, so you've been on the phone making calls to providers. So what is some of the feedback you've had or some of the experiences you've had actually trying to get a bit of traction?
Yeah, so I've never had anybody hang up on me, which I think is a really good sign that it's working. So they're always wanting the property details. They want to see photos. They want to see the design of the property. They're wanting the details, and they're quite happy to take them.
Yeah. And I guess this really almost completes a circle that we found I always say this, a massive disconnect between people developing the SDA properties, the builders, the investors, the developers, and the other side being the SDA, the NDIS side of it, the providers, the participants. And it can be really difficult for the two sides to meet and come together and find the right properties to match.
We often like to call ourselves the middlemen in this service that we're offering now.
I love it.
It's Min and I came up with that one. It's pretty exciting. Yeah, so think of us as like the middleman. We'll be finding out anything that you need. And it sort of takes the pressure off your shoulders when it comes to understanding the ever-changing world of NDIS as well. So yeah, it's a great service, and I do definitely recommend reaching out if you're having any struggles with this.
Absolutely. So, yeah, well, I think that kind of covers it. It's, in a nutshell, that is what it is. You have a property that you think you might be struggling to get an SDA provider engaged for, or they're not helping. You've got one and they're not helping find any participants. Reach out to us and we will discuss how we might be able to help you in this. So any last thoughts, Maddie?
No, not from me, but thank you everyone for listening in today. And we're really excited to hear from everyone. But yeah, and again, if you have any inquiries about what we've been speaking about today, please do contact myself on Maddie, MADDIE, at ndis.property.
Fabulous. Thanks, Maddie. And thanks, Rachel. Thank you for time on your first podcast episode with us.
Podcast.
I'm sure it won't be the last.
Step.
And thanks to everyone for listening today. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.